like a good guess if there's a man at the matrix that it's the same as John, just in case you're ever.
That's the case that.
I need to guess. Ready?
Good evening, my name is Helen Anthony, I'm the city councilwoman for Ward 2 and chair of the finance committee. We're calling to order our regular meeting on finance, regular meeting on Wednesday, May 31st at 5:30. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Chairwoman Helen Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Juan Chaplin,
Present.
Councilman James Taylor,
Here.
Councilor Sue Engelbron,
Here.
Councilor Miguel Sanchez.
Here.
We have 5 present, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and I wanted to thank your staff with us today. Thank you, and we also have Mario Marcone, the city solicitor, assistant city solicitor, joining us. Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure being.
All right. I would like a motion to waive the reading of items number 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second, okay, motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Amber, all in favor?
Okay.
All opposed? Okay, so, I thought we'd just take a minute, a little bit of a pause, just to talk about where we are with regard to the, support process that we so carefully crafted.
Yeah.
And we did it with the idea that we would, have our meetings, talk to all the committee, the departments, review their meetings, which I think we've done an excellent job doing that. And then we had scheduled a public hearing, for, the 6th, which is Monday. And hopes that we would be in position to discuss possible changes and amendments to the proposed budget. And I think we might be a little early on that, because we really haven't had an opportunity. We had a really long schedule and a tough schedule, just conducting the hearings. And I think we need just a little more time to discuss, what we hope to propose in terms of changes. So if it's okay with the committee, I was hoping that we might, we have to do it formally next week, but I'm thinking what we might do is postpone our public hearing from June 6th.
June 5th.
Sorry, June 5th to Tuesday the 13th of June, just to give us some more time so that we can actually put something out in the public, so they know exactly what it is that we're going to propose and why we're going to propose it. And that way the public will have a opportunity to have meaningful input on what we're proposing as changes. So I wanted to discuss that with all of you and see what you thought. Well, please, Councilor Ricardo.
I know, as you indicated, that the timetable that we have, especially in this budget inquiries and finding the details of each department, and also the deadlines that we all have to meet. And I know for the 5th, as you have indicated before, is to have also the public have the ability to come in and just provide testimony. I think that there's room for that in a sense, but if we haven't, obviously, we can still comments in general on the budget. Many people will have that opportunity to give their thought, especially as we're coming into the decision making shortly on the budget. That this will be an opportunity for more people to come before this committee and hear them. I'm not. There's always too many meetings, but I think the meeting that take place for people in the neighborhood to come in and testify on the mayor's budget, and then on the 13th or whatever date we come up with, where they can come if they choose to on the actual documentation that we put forward before we.
Well, procedurally, I think we don't have the time to notice it, so we can't have both. Because we've had one already on the mayor's budget, as well as better attended than any I've ever witnessed in my years. But we don't have time to hold both, so we don't have time to notice another one for the 13th. So it's really got to be one or the other. And I feel like we've already heard what people have to say on the mayor's budget, even though people may have more opinions. I think it's more important that we try to put something out before the June 13th So that people know what we're contemplating for changes, and then they would have a ability to, meaningful participate in those decisions. So we can't have both, we have to do one or the other.
Hmm.
And I just feel that June 6th is way too soon.
Just my clarification, understanding. So if it goes, if we have it in the sixth, how long? The fifth, to post for a hearing like that, do you need? How many days?
Are you
Just for-
talking about posting in the newspaper or just posting for our portal? Because once they continue it that evening to the date specific of June 13th, we can post the very next day for our open meetings portal. But
So
and the reason that we're continuing it is because there's not enough time frame to notice in the newspaper. You have to notice 10 days before, which we did for the public hearing on June 5th. We did notice in the newspaper. But if you continue to a date specific, you don't have to notice in the newspaper anymore. Also, we're not sure how much advertisement people read in the newspaper, so it's more our open meeting portal and Secretary of State, and we can post the very next day. And get that notice out there.
I just wanted that clarification.
Yes.
Any other comments? Councilor Anderson?
I think that makes a lot of sense to me to have, like, meet on the fifth to continue to the 13th. Because we have heard people's general comments. We heard like 2.5 hours of the comments on the mayor's budget, which is, I thought, pretty robust. And so having them have the opportunity to reflect. My only question is, if we're doing first passage on the 15th, will people feel like they actually get input we listen to, or will we just be kind of like, well, this is what it was actually?
Yeah, I do understand that, and maybe we can think about that a little, but we can't do the 15th, we can't do first pass. Okay, if we have a meeting under. So maybe we could talk about how it is that we have a discussion, a follow-up discussion on if we need to adjust the times, we're just kind of trying to figure that out.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I know what you're saying, so you're saying, we want to have a meaningful discussion on what we hear.
Yeah. So that people know that if they gave input, that it was worth their time to show up, because it was actually considered.
Okay, let me take that under advice, and I will tell us I could do it in conjunction with our medical clerk.
Of course.
Team and mastery on it, just because we have to figure out dates and
Yeah.
figure out the times, and then we also have the deadlines. We have to make sure that we have to have second passage or something since the past.
We can do special meetings, but the 15th is the last meeting, the regular council meeting.
Yeah,
So the next, there's 2 more weeks. We can do special meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we'll work something into
so that all sounds great then.
Okay, I just think we need a little extra time on this.
And for clarification, we would come on Monday at 5:30.
Yes, I'm gonna need a form.
Yeah, but then we would just say, we're continuing it and then we'll help this out.
Exactly.
Cool.
All these stuff.
So we will hear from the public just general.
No,
Gentlemen,
because we have to.
so what's the rationale of doing next Tuesday and next Monday?
Can we get rid of it?
So it's scheduled for the 5th and we're rescheduling for the 13th. Why are we rescheduling for the following Monday?
So sorry.
No, I'm just, because I was thinking maybe we could do a finance meeting on that day and.
Yeah, and then there's the
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
But
No. Yeah. We're all tied into 2 other responsibilities that. are understandable.
Just again, so the meeting for the 5th is publicized and public adjourned.
Correct.
For the public to come and provide testimony on the mayor's budget. And our discussion is not to have it, to have it, but also just continue and not take testimony because.
Yeah, so from the point of the public hearing is for the public to comment on our proposals. Not the mayor's, they already did that, so if we're not gonna have our stuff in line. For the 5th. It wouldn't really give us the opportunity for the public to comment on our proposal.
Correct. But I think your question is how do we let the public know that we're going to continue, so they don't show up on the fifth, and they just. So what we're doing is we are going to sort of do a communication. We're gonna let everyone think, Broker is gonna work on something that goes out, and they're all sending something out on or whatever.
Yeah.
If you guys are doing any communications in your awards, if you could just tell people to put the 13th on their calendar, and that we're gonna have something for them to consider. So that they can have meaningful testimony on those changes.
That's
Is that okay?
that's fine.
That was it.
Okay. Is any other discussion? I really appreciate everyone's, we've done a lot of really good work. So engaging our report colleagues is very important. So we need to make sure that, once we're kind of in agreement that we are going to share it with our colleagues to make sure we're all on the same page. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I have a motion to continue your items on through.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Made by Councilor Nagle, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor?
Hi.
All opposed? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please read, are we taking, do we need a motion to take 5 and 6 together? Are we taking them together? Would the presenters like to take 5 and 6 together? We have a motion to items 5 and 6 together.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Jordan, all in favor?
Hi.
Okay. All opposed? Now, 5 and 6 together.
Item number 5, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26, B1 and 5. Waste Management of Rhode Island, option 1 year, Department of Public Works, $8,872,775. Item number 6, resolution authorizing approval of the following ratification of contractual agreement by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26, 1, 2, and 5. Rhode Island Resource Recovery, Department of Public Works, $8,200,000.
Okay. You're. I see you probably were at 18. Yes, right. Can't do this alone. Okay. Swear everyone in.
Sure. Everyone can raise their right hand. We swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your names and titles for the record.
Maureen McManus, Deputy Director, DPW. Courtney Hawkins, Chief Operating Officer.
Alvin Young, Associate Director of the Iron.
Thank you all for coming. Please take a seat. And proceed when you are ready.
So the first item is an extension, a 1-year extension of the waste management contract. For background, during the end of the transition, we were notified by the previous administration that we needed to tell waste management if we intended to exercise our option to extend the contract. We asked the administration to do that. And, just after we got here, we heard back from waste management that they were going to decline our option. So the terms of the contract said that both parties had to agree to extend. Apparently, they had had several rounds of back and forth previously around the increase in costs that they're experiencing for doing business. And without any kind of remediation of those challenges by the previous administration. And so from their perspective, the terms of the contract were no longer sufficient for them to extend it. And so we did meet with council staff and leadership to talk about how to handle this. We agreed collectively as a group that, one, a 6-month period was not going to be sufficient to meaningfully procure a new waste removal contract. We had heard already from lots of you and constituents that we need to think about doing this work differently. And so simply taking the previous procurement, which only had one bidder the last time, and putting it out again was, in my mind, not gonna give us good results. So we decided to enter into negotiation with Waste Management to come to terms on a 1 or 2 year extension, which this new amendment provides for. It is our intention to be in a position at this time next year to have a newly procured contract for recommendation, hopefully earlier than this point. The team is already working on a RFI to solicit from this community ideas about how we can solve many of the problems that we hear about our current levels of service that we're providing to residents. And the intention is to use that RFI to inform an RFP that hopefully will get us a different kind of contract structure. This could include breaking the contract into smaller contracts. It could include separating bulk from, trash and recycling. We are all familiar with the challenges we have with the results that we're getting from this service. And so it's just my goal to try to solve for that in a new procurement. As it relates to this extension, the total value is $8.69 million. That is up about 15% from what would have been their option year. So there was an increase in the option year. It would have taken them to roughly 7.5. This new agreement takes them to 8.6.
You said 18%. 18%.
Just under 15%.
Okay.
We did do an analysis of our costs as it relates to other communities served by Waste Management in Rhode Island. We are the lowest on a per household basis. I'll tell you that part of the cost that, like when I look at all of the expenses across cities and towns, are the way we handle bulk is very different than many other municipalities. And so we're going to need to think about how we deal with that together moving forward. Director Coinfade, who's unfortunately out today, has already reached out to the council president to seek her guidance on how to engage a community of council members to inform how we procure the next agreement.
So is there any change to any of the terms? Is this merely an extension?
It's merely an extension with different costs associated with it.
And then this is, okay, I understand what you're doing. I know we've all had issues with waste management, some issues.
Yeah.
And we'd like to see things differently, so.
Yeah, and I do think there are some opportunities. I would say uniformly, I think probably due to resource constraints. One of my, observations 5 months in is that we haven't been what I would describe as actively managing vendor contracts across the board. You guys talked to me about lots of our vendor contracts that aren't working. This is an example of that. There are things that we can do to try to more actively hold them accountable for delivering on what they're supposed to, but I think like the contract also doesn't have the kind of teeth that it would need to have to be able to make a huge difference. And so we're going to have to work on that over time.
Okay, and just to clarify to people, some of our counselors have never looked at the waste management contract. So we don't necessarily know what it covers, doesn't cover. You go over that.
Sure. So this is. Do you want to answer that? You want me to try and you'll correct me? All right. So this is trash removal, recycling, yard waste for the period of time that there's yard waste, and the bulk, scheduled bulk pickup. Okay.
Also includes white good pickup,
What is that again?
white goods,
Appliances.
appliances, it includes that. And it also includes e-waste. E-waste pickup,
E-waste.
e-waste. Which would include TVs and computer box and everything like that.
I'm sorry, on e-waste pickup, is that something that's picked up on the curb?
Yes,
No. I didn't even know that it was offered.
well, I don't know if everybody takes advantage of it. Some residents may just go down into the trash bag or recycling bag. So I think that's one of the things going forward, that we can have a drop-off center, and we can eliminate the cost of that service from those management and take it upon ourselves. That's one thing that we
Okay. All right. Councilors, questions? Yes, Councilor Randall.
Thank you guys so much for this, for bringing this forward. Do we have a sense of 15% is higher than the, like, inflation right now? Do we know like what costs have gone up and what accounts for that roughly 15%?
Yeah. So it's compounded over a number of years that they, like, I am frankly shocked that they agreed to the contract they had before, because I think the rates have increased to like 1 or 2%. And when you think about the cost of equipment, workforce, you know, I think you all probably experienced during COVID, I'm told that there were tremendous shortages as it related to workforce,
Okay.
which resulted in service challenges. So all of those kinds of like costed, you know, repairs to trucks, cost to doing business have impacted their work.
Okay.
And that compounded over a number of years. So that 50%, I think, represents that.
Okay.
Counselor,
Oh,
so
please.
also during the time in the middle of this contract, COVID did rear its head and a lot of people moved home from like their offices.
Oh,
So
so
we're seeing a huge spike in residential home disposal rather than at the office. So that has actually not even like plateaued. So they're seeing like at that time, there was a huge spike in like bulk items at the curb. People weren't going to the office anymore, and we really haven't seen that go back down too much. So I think at the time they made the contract, that was not an issue, right? So they're seeing a huge increase in what they're picking up because people are staying home more.
Yeah.
And I think it's just gonna stay that way for a little bit. So I think that has a big.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think also that the labor costs had increased quite considerably. They couldn't find drivers, they had to pay more to get drivers. And they don't, you know, we expected that. That was one of the issues that they were presenting to us. And of course, fuel increases and stuff like that, so, you know, I think it's something that we had to look into as well, just because of that. Our own people, you know, deserve increased rates to do work in the city, right? So.
And also we've seen that too in trying to recruit CDL drivers. We've had a very hard time. So at one point, they had like a $15,000 sign up bonus.
Oh,
That's
wow.
for CDL drivers. So I think that's all part of the costs that they weren't, that I made with the previous administration.
And just remind me, in the contract, the current contractor, is there an obligation, for part of waste management to do education on this site? No, okay, all right. Yes.
I have a few questions, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
You mentioned 8.6 million. The letter to the board says 8.872775.
That's what's supposed to-
Fact check.
Can
It
you,
might be that my notes are wrong. 8.7, it's my cheat sheet is wrong.
so is 8.872775?
Yes.
Okay. Also, I know you said the reasoning that we couldn't continue to the extension. What was the reason?
When
You
they
could-
declined the option, they're not obligated to provide another year. So we were without a vendor for July 1st.
Okay.
So we had
Just-
an option to re-procure or negotiate.
Do you have the monthly cost for waste and recycling and yard debris? Do you have that broken down by month?
Yes.
Just for the councils, in 2020 or 2018, when we renegotiated this, we actually extended the contract so we could lock in on purpose, and that was to save the city money. What we should be paying them is 7.5 million. So this is a $1.3 million.
About 50%. So this is it, right? Yeah. It's $342,000 a month for trash, $310,250 for recycling, $89,500 for yard waste.
Can you send that to us?
Uh-huh.
It's the breakdown, and I see what you're saying now.
Also, within that last contract we had, why aren't they? So they're not obeying by the contract. This is just totally a non-contractual, this is what we're paying. We get none of the benefits that we got from the contract for locking in for those 5 years. We don't get any of the educational incentives. We don't get the money for we used to get money for barrels.
Yeah.
We used to get money for
Previous administration
mattresses,
didn't use any of that money, and it was not continued into this extension.
and they wouldn't even honor any of it.
They're getting money, a small amount for barrels, yeah.
We're getting $32,000 per barrel.
Okay, Counselor.
Taylor. He's been the
He's
bull.
been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Quick question, do they charge for, washers, like say I call, I'm at 6 Thurston Street, I got a washing machine I put up on.
Yeah.
And here's what happens, in my neighborhood, and probably everybody's neighborhood, people ride around, they pick up the stuff.
Yeah.
And they take it to the recycle, get money for
Yeah.
it, metals.
Yeah.
Do they charge us, so if I call and say, hey, there's a washer out there,
Yes,
and they come pick it up, do they charge us, even though
Yes.
it's not there?
yes,
Do we have any recourse to go after that?
this is why we need a new contract.
Right now, but we're gonna let it go for a year.
We don't have any.
How much did we spend? Do we know how much we spent on?
So
To have-
just to clarify, so yes, and when they put it in the contract and they actually say when they actually go to the physical place, because they made the trip to the actual appointment, that's where they say that they need to recoup those costs. Al could speak a little bit more about what he's thinking for the next iteration of the contract.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that we can remove from the contract and do it ourselves. As long as we have the proper tools, the truck, basically. But scavengers, like Councilman Taylor says, scavengers, most of the time get the white goods appliances before waste management does. Yet, when they go out, they charge us $25 a stop, and I didn't bring that information, but a lot of times. It's anywhere from $25 to $30 a stop per day. So my opinion is this, so if it's 30 stops, that's $750. If we can get the white goods and cash value for that, that's probably at least $1,000 savings on one day. So in the course of a year, that's quite a bit of savings in our pocket. If we can do it ourselves. And we don't need.
You have the resources.
We should have the resources to do it. All we need is a truck and getting some laborers, and it should be something that we can handle. But again, to me, it's money that, I almost think sometimes that they wait. So the scavengers can do it. It used to be a daily thing, and I think right now it's on a every other day basis, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if your white goods are on a Tuesday, Thursday, I think Councilman Bishalo and I were up one day in front of his house. And we saw a truck go by with appliances in the truck. And I noted, I pointed out to the councilman, look, this is what they do. You know, so it gives an opportunity for some people to make some money. But I mean, that's money that we can be making. Right?
Yeah.
And with that in mind, that we might actually take that out, we did put a clause in the extension that says it would be a $40,000 decrease per month for something like the white goods, the electronics, and like mattresses. So it's something where that's in the contract extension.
I guess my question is that why are we gonna let it go for a year, which it could be like $400,000? It's saying 40,000. It's 30,000.
Because
And-
we're
and-
without a trash vendor on July 1st. And, you know, this is the contract that we have. So if the council would like the administration to go back and say this isn't approved and we don't want to pay for that, we can certainly take a swing. at it.
Well, we're paying for it for no reason.
It's my assessment that we're not gonna get a proposal better than this. And, you know, the timing is the timing, so. It's my recommendation that we take the opportunity to do a better job at structuring a contract. In a year from now, and be thoughtful about what that should look like, so that we have more than one bidder. Because when you only have one bidder on a contract, you're a little bit tied to what that vendor says they want to do.
Yeah.
Follow up on that. Do you know when the last time I went out to an RFP?
it was for this contract, so I think 3 years ago. Or whatever.
It's actually getting an extension on it.
Yeah, I believe that was an extension, but I think the last time I actually bid is 2017.
Yeah, I think also, if I can, is do they have competition big enough to handle the city of Providence? You know, in spite of what council people and residents might think, they do a halfway decent job. If they, you know, we communicate, if they miss, they go back. We just had an area in Councilman Taylor's ward that they went back to retreat following day, but, you know, it happens, right? Trucks break down, they miss an area.
But it always seems to happen on a long weekend. And my
What's
phone
that?
blows up from three days. I didn't pick it up Friday, I'll be there Tuesday. I don't have one. Oh my God, you know.
We're trying to send we have this method that we use now. We send an inspector out on holiday weekends on a Saturday. I go up myself as well, just keep them honest on a Saturday. Because if there's nobody out there, then maybe they can cut corners, or there's spillage, and we send them back. When we see that, we send them back and they clean it. So there's gonna be some accountability, right? So we're trying to do that on the holiday weeks. So this weekend, we will have an inspector and myself out doing the roof, because they want to get out there early, the landfill closes at 12 or 1 o'clock on a Saturday. So they have to get out early, unfortunately. They have to, that's. In order to complete the route, they're out early, so we can get out. And check the routes and make sure everything's good. You know, we may miss some stuff ourselves, but we try to do the 3 boards or 3.5 boards that. Fall on a Friday pickup, which would be Saturday pickup, and make sure everything's picked up. It's one thing we can do.
Okay, now, okay, well, first we have Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Did I hear that what we're signing is a 2-year extension?
Has the option for 2 years. But we would have to exercise the option. We have a chance after 1 year to say we don't need to.
Would the administration need to come back to council for approval of that 2nd year?
Yes.
Alright, yes, I'm not gonna talk too much because I'm super passionate about this and I've been involved with this work since I started really. And my thing is always has been that we need to get away from waste management. Obviously, right now we're in a pretty difficult situation. But I wouldn't even want to put that 2nd year option, because that's kind of leaving the door open, and I don't want to go back to waste management. I understand we were part of the negotiation, so I mean, we really don't know their expenses and their increases. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, we're paying them way too much to not do the work that they do, and maybe that's something that's on the city as well for not having the accountability mechanisms in there to keep them at play. But at the end of the day, they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation that will do whatever they want, no matter what we do. So just to throw numbers out there, their stock in 2020 was 112. 2023, it's 163. So, and they were highly compared to them, and I think doing something like you said about breaking it up a little bit, if that's the way we have to go, then that's what I would strongly urge us to do.
Councilor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of this. This is really good information. I guess I had 2 questions. One is, so it seems like the assumption is we'll go out to bid and we're working on the bid now, understanding that we have to kind of do this, or we have no trash pickup started July 1, but that we'll work on the bid. And it sounds like there's the potential to break it up. Is part of the breaking up the contract, is there's the potential that we could resource DPW staff to do parts of it that we're not currently doing, and bring some of that in-house. So yeah. Okay.
And I've heard ideas from folks about bringing in smaller vendors to do different parts. The purpose of the RFI will be to understand who's out there, that might be interested in this market. We have learned from colleagues in the field that there are more larger vendors now that could handle a city the size of Providence, but when you construct a procurement, you want to ensure that you have people who are going to respond and that you construct it in a way that you're not preventing certain groups from being able to participate. We want to make sure we understand, I mean, the challenges we have with recycling, as you know, are unbelievable, and like we need different solutions. So we'd like to understand what other vendors can bring to the table as it relates to recycling. And so the RFI will help inform that. The RFP will then provide a competitive process to get us under contract.
And then I
But
guess-
that is, I want to be honest, like that's a lot that if you've worked in procurements, that a 1-year timeline for that is tight.
Yeah.
So I hear your point about not wanting 2 years. I don't want 2 years either. But I think it behooves us to ensure that we are not without this service or risking being without this service because it's so critical. And so I think this is a conservative way to try to have a backup plan while we are accountable. You know, if we don't have the RFI out, you call me here and ask me why we don't have the RFI out. If we have to be accountable for the timeline, that's fine, but we also want to be accountable to taxpayers to ensure that we have this service.
Is this okay for a second question?
Yes.
Say that. And as soon as I said that, the second question was, and I guess as we're building out that RFI, so for example, what I'm about to say, e-waste, which it sounds like it's in their contract now, they're supposed to be doing. Like if you go to the Resource Recovery's website under how do I do e-waste, like it doesn't say you can throw it away in our trash. It doesn't say that they'll do pickup. There's just sites listed at the state. And I know I've done that myself, but I just went on the website to double check. So I don't think most Providence residents would have any idea that that's something we're paying for, or that they could take advantage of. So like we could just be really clear in the future, and I'm super happy to help with this. Like if there are services they're supposed to be providing, how are we communicating those to residents so that they can be diverting their trash or their waste in ways that.
Well, and this is frankly why we've included a community liaison in the DPW budget so that we can be more actively engaged with the community with our options.
Okay, all right, and I wanted to say, one second. Well, to Councilman Vargas, I'm sorry, we recognized you earlier, and I know you have a question.
I was getting used to it.
I think I was blocking him with my body.
Yeah.
I think it's my fault.
My always recognize you, and I want you to ask me a question. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's all right. The question is, who negotiated this? I wasn't invited to be in this table when you guys negotiate the deal with West Management. You mentioned that council people. Which council?
I met with Council President Miller and the treasurer and staff before we started to tell them about this challenge and indicate that the administration has to make a decision about moving forward with the negotiation or not.
And there was no room to remove the white goods and the e-waste pickup?
So we did ask them how much it would cost to remove bulky waste pickup from.
No, I didn't say bulky waste. I said white goods, fridge, stoves, metal.
We don't currently have an alternative to provide that service today. So if we removed it from the contract, we wouldn't have anyone else to do it.
Well, like the metal stuff, the people will pick it up next day and will be out of the sidewalk. And
We cannot, I mean, I can't, the city's responsibility can't be that a scavenger is going to pick something up, even though that is likely what will happen, right? We have to have a service. We are hopeful that in the DPW budget, if we're able to fund additional laborers and that we'll be able to start to provide more support there, and then we won't need to rely on a vendor to do that. But at this point, we don't have people that can reliably do that.
and the e-waste pickup, we can put a dumpster next to the container. Everybody who bring a mattress can bring the e-waste and throw into the container.
That is what Alice suggested, that's right.
That would be the great idea, but like, but the service that we getting now is horrible.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't care, they pick up, they leave trash behind, and like, they don't care anymore. And it's a shame for the administration that they didn't put this forbidden, and a year ago, knowing that this contract was going to be ending. It's a shame for the last administration that we have people from the last administration here, that they didn't go out forbidden and say, look, this contract is going to be at the end when everybody's complaining at the same time. So now that we don't have nowhere to go, to say yes to them because they know what they're doing. So now it will be a good time to put a bidder out, the service, to see how many companies we can get. And we can start going for a new process, a new bidding process. So they will say, look, oh, they're looking for somebody else, we better do a better job.
Yeah, totally, exactly. That's exactly
You know,
what we
and because if we don't put pressure on them, don't worry, they're looking for the check.
Exactly.
And,
One of the
and,
purposes of the RFI is to demonstrate competition, to ensure that people are on notice, there is competition.
One of the things I think that we offer our residents, right, which is not like any other community, is three bulky items per week, every week, per floor in a 3-family, 4-family. That's not common in any other city or town. Sometimes it's once a month. We're offering that every week.
right,
So, you know, it gives people who have multiple homes in the city, opportunity to maybe bring something maybe from Cranston or Socket, because they know they're getting free pickup. Or when they have bulky items picked up in Cranston or some of these other towns, they have to pay. And it's probably only once a month. So that's the service that we're providing to the residents of the city when it comes to the cost.
Does anyone want to guess how many bulky items we picked up in 2022?
a lot.
46,000.
Oh, wow.
Cranston, 3,000. So when we think about, when we start to brainstorm as a team about what kind of services we want to provide, we've got to take those kinds of things into account. Now, if we don't provide it, we also know it ends up in an empty lot or on the street, and you know, there are pros and cons to what we're doing, but some of the cost that we bear is because we are providing. Yes.
Thank you, man. The last one. What happens with the semi-contract that they did with them in 2020 about the mattresses? That they did a big press release,
Yeah.
last administration came in the news, oh, we're going to pick up the mattress for free,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry no more. And then everybody was putting the mattress in the street and they stayed there for 3 months.
Yeah.
What happens to that?
To the
Meaning to
service
the
for
services.
mattresses.
Yeah, well. Are you talking about the proposal to pay for city residents?
Yeah, the West Mansion was going to pick it up for free.
Right, but there was no. It wasn't really organized to say, okay. I'm gonna put out as many mattresses as I can for the first 4 months. But you who live in a different area don't have a mattress to pull out until 6 and 7 months later. The money might be has already expired, and now you don't get a piece of that. So there was no way to control. How many mattresses per household would be put out and paid for that way? And, you know, the job that we do with collecting mattresses is we could have done pretty good. We're collecting, I think we said before, close to 10,000 mattresses a year. It doesn't stop. I don't know why. Again, maybe they come from other communities, but you know, we pick up dump mattresses, we pick up mattresses that are put out. That don't call waste management. The people that are going to call waste management and pay for it, they do it. So it's kind of difficult to differentiate who's going to get that service and who's not. So again, we offer that drop-off service at our place every Saturday. And we do anywhere from 150 to, on a good day, you know, weather permitting, from 150 to 200 mattresses on a Saturday. So if you.
But I think that program that was announced was not realized.
They never fly out.
Hmm.
And what happens to the money that they put aside for that?
Who knows it?
We lost it. But there is a great program that we have on Saturdays. That's great things that we're doing on Saturdays, people taking the mattress away. And that investment is very well done. The idea to bring the mattress, it will be a great idea after this contract, hopefully be alive. I would like to be in that table and tell them.
For sure.
And to be like, we can create a dumpster for the e-waste. And we can create a dumpster for the white stuff, the metal stuff.
We're gonna have,
And I will give you $10 to see who brings a white stuff in. Nobody will.
we're gonna bid to Councilman Taylor and pick up mattresses citywide.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Just a couple of comments. Did the law department confirm that we were not able to continue under the old pricing?
Yes.
Okay, because it says the extension may be up to 5 years. Once we made that extension, because I remember
By
working hard to.
mutual agreement.
Okay, also, the mattresses, it was $250,000 a year. That number was based on the number of collections that they did for a year, so they were trying to cover the amount. So that's what that 250 was, and it was supposed to be automatically deposited into a city account. It didn't, and nothing had to be done. So if it didn't get put into the city account, it could have offset the cost at some other point. So the city really failed. And it was 250. Waste Management shall allocate 750,000 to the city for its use in undertaking of city services included but not limited to solid waste. Recycling collection services. So if we didn't use all of that money, we could have applied it to something else, if I understand it correctly. We could have gotten that money, we could have drawn it down, someone should have just worked hard. We go into these contracts with these vendors, hold them to it. We just lost $1.3 million because no one did their due diligence to straighten it out, and it happens all the time. It's very frustrating. We don't even have a contract to confirm that what happens in the option year 2, there's no wording. I don't know if you're all comfortable, but you don't have a contract in front of you of what they're presenting. You have their word.
No, we didn't, so I think we have the amendments. Sorry.
This is the old contract.
What was submitted to Board of Contracts?
This is the old contract.
So if the committee would like, I mean, if we could continue this matter, get the contract. I don't know, if we hear this matter on June 6th. Because we remember council meeting, is that going to be enough time for you?
It has to be referred to full council.
15.
It would be the 15th either way, whether you pass it today or next week.
It would be all right if we could do that and get the contract, that would be so helpful. So we have a whole, I think we would like to see the contract. So if that's okay with you, we would like to,
Hold on, it.
would you like to do a, someone with that motion?
Is the motion to continue?
Number 5.
Then I'll motion to continue agenda item number 5.
Second that.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Ingersoll, seconded by Councilor. Councilor in favor. Also, thank you so much. That we will continue that matter. Would you like to move on to the recycling?
Sure, I don't have any commentary on this. This is the extension of our contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery, the state's only trash disposal. Yeah, so it's a 2-year contract for Rhode Island Resource Recovery, and that's where all the refuse processing happens for the state of Rhode Island. So all municipalities bring their trash and recycling to the facility, as does Providence. So we can't have to bring all trash and recycling to this facility in Johnston. So this is the contract to do the refuse processing for everything that we bring from the curb to them.
Okay, and I just for clarification. I see amendment 1. I just want to make sure that we're talking about this, and we all have the full contract with the amendments. Okay. So I see amendment 1, is that if somebody can just know who have everything.
There should be another one for, Rhode Island Resource Recovery.
Okay, we have.
That yes, that contract is there.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna open it up for questions. Yes.
Does this, thank you, Chairwoman. Does this include, I know that when our, because we have such troubles with recycling rates, when things get, refused at the MRF, and then we have to bring them to, the other part of resource recovery for just trash, we get fined for that. Does this 8 million include those fines? Like, are we proposing, or is this really just the recycling rates and then fines get? I think like a couple years ago, it was like $1 million a year in fines or something, but
So this increase should be the agreement that they had for like the per tonnage increases. So right now it's $54 a ton, and they plan to increase it in the next 2 years. It's like $4 for next year. and then-
459 now.
Yeah.
so it's just for the actual like processing, and then when we are bad at, okay,
So we
We
really have,
won't know what our rejected load would be in the future,
Until-
so yes.
okay.
and I think our recycling is pretty much no time low, 4%.
Yeah.
So, you know, that'll show you that most of the stuff that we're bringing up there ends up in that.
Yeah, is there, do you mind if I-
Yes, please.
is there a way to build in when we're doing the RFI for, I know we just closed number 5, but when we're doing the RFI for number 5. I know there was a pilot a few years ago where folks from DPW went out and kind of followed some of the trucks and left notes about, this is. This is contaminated, like in the future, you would get fined for this, and I don't think there were actually any fines, but like that kind of like. When it's just the arm, like it just gets thrown out and people don't have the feedback of like, oh, I actually can't do this, or there's a ramification for this. Like I know a lot of people who have no idea that they can't put plastic bags in there, which. I know all the materials are so clear, you can't do plastic bags, but like they still get thrown away. Pizza boxes, totally, yeah. My husband asks me all the time what he can put in recycling, and I'm always like, oh.
Yeah.
Uh,
That person asked.
yeah, but, can there be that kind of education built into the RFI so we can increase from 4% to something that won't get us fined constantly and actually like helps divert some of our waste?
Well, we have done that. We do what we call recycle blitzes. So we'll go into an area where that's as many employees as we have,
Yeah,
but you have to work with waste management. So we get them to hold trucks back,
Mhm.
so we can get in and look in barrels.
yeah,
So we look in, and again, it's labor intensive,
Yeah.
how much do you do? So we try to do a truck route or a portion of a truck route. In an area we think, we would go to an area we think we can get it past. Right? So we'll look at everybody's barrel. And we would leave a yes acceptance ribbon on it,
Yeah.
green, or sometimes a red ribbon, as they
Mhm.
go.
So, yeah,
But the residents, they catch up, right? And they go the ball. But they want this stuff picked up, right? So, but you gotta work with the company.
Yeah.
And they have to be willing to do that. So they have to put that driver somewhere else. Why we get
You
in,
go out and
we come in
tag.
at 5 o'clock in the morning. We go out, we look in the barrels in that area. Once we're through, we give them a call and we let them know, look, as long as we have 50 or 60 barrels that we're gonna leave behind. So we don't want that going to the recycling.
yeah, just have the trash guy come, yeah,
You have the trash truck. So they're able to send the trash truck with the designated ribbon. Empty his trash and everyone else is getting dumped as recycling.
Yeah.
And, we were doing, I think last year, we haven't done it this year, but last year we were doing like 6 groups of, 6 different groups. And on any given, we were doing 2-stage groups, which was best next day to Monday. Like Monday
yeah,
is one of the
Monday's
best
pretty good
days.
route, yeah,
And out of the 6 routes, we were getting 4 or 5 accepted loads. Not all the time, sometimes, they, for whatever reason, maybe a holiday, whatever, more trash than necessary.
Yeah.
and it would contaminate the recycling,
yeah,
but for a good portion of the time, we were getting accepted loads.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And once you kind of leave that area,
it goes back,
slowly goes back to the way it was, so there's no set way to get it right, to get it, to keep going. So we were doing canvassing as well. Knocking on doors at like afternoons, when people are home more or less. And, asking to look in their garbage and we show you what's good with that, and we have, we can get some, you only need, and we've got.
Yeah, no, I
we've got
appreciate that, yeah.
information- We've got information to hand out, what you can recycle and what you can't.
yeah,
And like Maureen said, with COVID, you've got a lot more households
that have
So much
more
trash.
people. No,
Yeah.
there are more people. I had a girl come in yesterday, I have 7 people living in the house, 7 people.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we were invited because of COVID and people are out of work. I have my mom and pop, or my mom and pop will have me and my wife and my kids coming.
Yeah.
So now there's 6 people generating trash and they're generating too much.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't fit the trash barrel,
They're gonna stick in the recycling, yeah.
it's going in the recycle barrel. So
Yeah,
there's multiple issues that are facing
yeah,
on a daily basis as how we can correct this recycling problem.
yeah. I'm super sympathetic to that. I wonder if there's, and this will be a future conversation, but ways we could be partnering with the schools. Like I know like Nathan Bishop and MLK have really active composting, where they've diverted like several tons of compost. So there are like students or student groups who might be interested in partnering with like the canvassing or extending your, it just seems like I think the fine, I think it was 2018, the fines were like $1 million on top of what we're already paying, which is just like insane. But understand the resource and constraints, so I'd love to think creatively about that.
Yeah, we also go by the driver. Unfortunately, we have to depend on the driver.
Yeah,
Who's got a camera in the truck to let us know that the load is not gonna pass.
yeah.
So they save us $250 fine
Mhm.
and go right to the landfill company
Yeah,
based on his opinion of what's in there.
what's in there, yeah.
So, there's no foolproof method.
Yeah, thank you.
And just for clarification, I just asked, so what was the increase between last year and this year? For the contract? You talking about the current contract? Yes.
So it's $54 a ton currently.
Okay,
For FY 24, it's $58.50 per ton.
okay,
And then for FY 25, it's gonna be $63 per ton.
okay.
And that, if you look at that across like the United States, that's actually quite subsidized. So if you look
Yeah,
at
it's pretty
other
low.
rates for other states, that's actually pretty low. And that's nowadays.
All right, and yes, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager. So in these $8,200,000, we are including only 54 per ton, right?
For FY 24.
FY 24.
It's
This,
58.50.
but what about the 54? ton?
That's up to July. It's up to the
That's
end of
correct,
this year.
that's our.
That's correct. So after,
Then we can have one person speak at a time, please.
I'm sorry. Okay, so current is 54.
Correct.
After July will be $8,200,000.
It's so, yeah, it's for the 2 years.
It would be-
FY 24 and 25.
And how much are we getting back out of these $8 million? Are we getting back any money when the recycle truck goes, is good?
They haven't done rebate checks in a
I
while.
think we got one this year. It was about 5,000, something like that.
Oh, good.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
At least we got 5,000
Well
back.
done.
I think if we could have one at a time, please.
I'm sorry, Madam.
Conversation, this is a question and any answer,
Apologies.
no worries. Councilor Vargas, do you have any more questions?
We don't have no competition with this trash company, right? This is it. No more question,
We
Madam.
did, but
The only game in town.
all right, Madam Auditor.
I'm going back to your budget. You have 2 line items, one for refuse processing and one for rubbish removal. I'm really concerned you didn't put enough in the budget in your award. So what is the 255 for rubbish removal?
So the refuse processing is for our resource recovery invoices that we're talking about, and rubbish removal is a new item that we put in, and that's for doing the corridor cleaning, like litter initiatives that we had talked about. So that was something we were gonna do downtown litter initiatives and pick up. So that's not related to anything
Okay.
going to around.
Okay, I just wanted to-
Completely separate. Yep,
I wanted to
not
make sure
related.
you didn't need 4.3 a year.
No, not related
Okay.
at all.
That was all. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Are people ready to make a motion with regard to this agenda item? Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, the motion is made with Councilor Ingersoll, seconded by Councilor Charter. Is there any discussion regarding this?
Motion to approve.
It's a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. So we will look forward to receiving the original contract. I think that's what Madam Auditor pointed out. waste management will take the paperwork on that basis.
I'm sorry, Chairman, the original contract,
I'm sorry.
No,
The contract for the waste management, the new contract.
May I please sign the new contract? Thank you. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So no move, second, third, fourth.
Council Taylor, seconded by Council Picardo, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? If you still not in favor, you're at your time. I got it.
Okay.